Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got a great show. Today we're talking to Keary Lord from Atkins, who is the program manager of the Renew Atlanta Bond T-Splost Bond program. And we're going to be talking about a bunch of different projects that they've been doing in Renew Atlanta, which are really exciting, having connected vehicles and multiple other applications that are running there. And then we're also going to be talking about all sorts of other things that are going on in that program. Before we get started, YouTube is probably a better streaming platform because it's higher definition. So if you want to click on the link that Jessica's going to put up, click on that. And we're going to hand it over to Jessica, who's going to basically tell us all about how the program's going to work today.
Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen segment as always. We are going to be doing an interactive Q&A session today, so go ahead and type your questions in that Q&A box. If you've never used Zoom before, that can be found at the bar at the bottom, and it literally says Q&A with a thought bubble. So do that and we'll get to it as we go along. As Peter mentioned, I just sent the YouTube stream link in the chat box, and that's going to give you an HD view, and we are going to record the session and have it available on our YouTube channel like we always do with all of our other sessions. So if you need to hop off for any reason, definitely check back on our YouTube and finish viewing, or if you want to share it to anybody else in your organization after we wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. As always, it's a pleasure being in your kitchen. So today we're talking to Keary Lord, and we're talking about multiple different projects. So Keary, welcome to the show and thanks for being here. Before we get into kind of specifics of projects, why don't you tell us a little bit about who is Keary Lord?
Yeah, sure. So I work for Atkins. I'm a project director for Atkins, specifically assigned to the City of Atlanta's Renew Atlanta Bond and Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax Program. So I'm there, embedded at the city, delivering $600 million worth of projects for the city. Very good projects, very many projects there. My background, I specialize in traffic engineering, ITS engineering, and I'm a 28-year guy. So I've been around a little while. I've been in Atkins now for about 5 years. Before that, I spent a lot of time in local government as a deputy director and traffic engineer for Douglas County, Georgia. Before that, many years in the consulting world. So that's how I got here, and I think it's the best field you could possibly be in.
So, what drove you to move across from a public agency to the consulting agencies?
Well, so there's a tremendous amount of experience that you can gain in a public sector. You are in charge and responsible for all the drivers on those streets and those intersections, and so you're essentially a public official and answering to the constituents and the elected officials of that jurisdiction. And so when you're there, you get to procure and develop projects that can better people's lives. So that's a key thing that I've always kind of wanted to do. So that's why I pursued that. I felt like having that type of experience in government was the thing that I needed to be simply a better consultant.
Okay.
Eventually.
Yeah, and now you've used a whole bunch of that knowledge in the Renew Atlanta, because you're kind of in between a consultant and working for the city, and you're still implementing these really nice projects, right?
That's right. So, I'm essentially a consultant wearing a government hat too. Still working, the client is government and elected officials and constituents. And so it has a similar taste and touch, yes.
So what are some of the kind of projects that you've been involved in? You said something about you spending $500 million a year, which sounds like a lot, but probably isn't that much when you're thinking about your projects, I'm guessing. You want to tell us some of the kind of projects that you've been involved in?
Sure. It's not $500 million a year. It's $600 million total.
Okay.
So it's like a 5-year program. All those put together, combining the bond funds and then the T-SPLOS funds, and then there's still access to state and federal funds and impact fee funds. Atlanta has some of the fabulous projects. There are bridge projects. There are also complete street projects. There are many intersection improvement projects. There were smart corridor projects, technology projects, and they, the list goes on and on. There's multi-use trails, the pedestrian improvements, resurfacing. There's all the things that this city has needed for years. And this infrastructure bond and T-SPLOS is to get the city's infrastructure back to a good state.
And is that the reason why the Renew Atlanta T-SPLOS bond was created, was to sort of bring the city of Atlanta back up?
Yes, that is correct. The city had a significant backlog of infrastructure needs, so the bond, in conjunction with the T-SPLOS, was intended to bring this infrastructure to a good state of repair. And then also, is it enough? Possibly not. There needs to be further investment in the future. Atlanta has a lot of infrastructure.
Now, when you say it has a lot of infrastructure, from our world, we talk about intersections and, ITS devices. How many intersections does the city of Atlanta actually manage?
Well, let's see. There's 1,000 traffic signals, okay? So there's way more intersections than that, non-signalized, so throughout the city. It's just, you could look at Atlanta, you could say it's a small geographic footprint, but it has a huge business community down there and a huge residential community, and this a thriving different types of mobility for all these people who live and work and play in the city.
So you talked about all sorts of different types of communities and people getting these different types of systems. How do you, when you're dealing with so many different types of platforms, scooters and buses and emergency vehicles and cyclists, how do you communicate with all those people, and then how do you bring it all together?
Well, citizens of Atlanta are very vocal, and they make it really clear to their elected official what they want for their quality of life, to live in the city, to work in the city, and then be able to enjoy things, whether they're family or not. And so the message is loud and clear. And so now to balance all the mobility needs that are being desired, it's a challenge. It certainly is. There's probably what I would say a lack of bicycle amenities, and there's an outcry for that. There's a lot of cars, the business community, and I guess you could say when Atlanta became a city, pre-transit, that the automobile was a big piece of mobility. And so unfortunately, Atlanta has a lot of traffic. And really on any given day, if you look at the interstate system leading into Atlanta, they are clogged, full of cars, and those people are coming in here to work. So, it's a significant amount of that. But you have to balance it. It must be balanced. There are pedestrians that are crossing these roads. There are bicyclists. Scooters are now a new thing, and they're on the streets as well. And you can't forget transit. So you have to look at it all together. All your solutions and projects need to address several different modes of mobility, never one.
What are the current goals of the administration now in terms of, are they pushing vehicle traffic? Are they pushing pedestrian, cyclists? Are they pushing transit? What are sort of some of the goals that the administration has right now?
Well, it's completely safety. So there's a new Vision Zero strategic plan, and the City of Atlanta Council has adopted this legislation. So a huge emphasis on safety. More emphasis on bicyclist and pedestrian safety, even the scooter safety. So to get the current roadways and intersections to be able to accommodate more of that. And it's not to take the cars away, but it's to get the cars to drive at a safe speed, to drive safer, acknowledge these other types of mobility, and and to ultimately just have 0 deaths on any given year, and less injuries less crashes altogether.
So you were the program director of the Renew Atlanta project, which was a smart corridor project, which is kind of one of the first smart corridor projects that I've seen being really, really successful.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys actually go about doing that?
So that's my favorite project for sure, the North Avenue Smart Corridor project. Well, in September, fall of 2016, okay, the previous administration had a strong desire to put Atlanta, as a mark in the nation as a technology city, and they wanted to be aggressive about it. So they decided to put out a request for information for all different types of technology that's available, so they could figure out what is available, what's out there, what companies actually do this. And so when they got the request for information back, based off the requirements and the questions, which was outcome-based performance, not specifications and not these other types of way, but it was prepared in a manner to provide an outcome, and then that's what the city wanted to look at to deploy, things that are truly deployable. And that administration also had a very hard set deadline for deployment operation to be working. And it was a big ribbon cutting. There was no change in it. Nothing was going to change that. And it was a situation where that project must be done. And there's no excuses.
And this is new technology as well.
Yeah, so that could be a challenge. You got to figure out, all right, what are the best technologies to utilize? Which ones actually, who responded the right way? And then what makes sense for safety for all these mobility users on North Avenue, and what's truly deployable, what makes sense? Because in reality, responses to RFI can be crazy. They can be way off track, and some of them might simply make sense, and you got to check in with these vendors, technology companies, manufacturers, and say, is this real? Can you truly do this? And make sure it's legit. Now, to procure, that's another challenge.
So how did you actually pick the people then? I mean, obviously you came in, and I mean, how do you actually figure out who's legit and who's not? Because everybody writes a good writing. How do you actually choose, who's actually got something that's real?
Well, I mean, so that was a significant amount of reading, right? And then a lot of phone calls, a lot of checking in to make sure these are truly doable. And so, this was intended to be a connected vehicle, autonomous vehicle demonstration, and then also demonstrating many technologies that could ultimately be proven worthy for deployment throughout the rest of the city. So, you could see what was doable, but other city staff had to kind of understand and make sure it made sense. So there's a huge team that said, this makes sense, let's dig a little deeper, a little further, and then let's talk to these companies and decide, can it be deployed? Can they convince us that it can be deployed? Is this really going to work? And then figure out how to procure it.
So if I had to say this correct, North Avenue was really a project that you guys from the city wanted to actually figure out, is this technology for real? Does it work? And actually deploy it and actually see it running to actually say, should we deploy this further within the city?
That's correct.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a traffic engineer's dream, a dream project like this. And it worked, actually. Having some partnerships such as with Georgia Department of Transportation and being able to legislate use of contracts that they already have in place made it possible to procure hardware, technology, and have it in place and working for this September ribbon cutting deadline, and show it off, to the nation, actually to the world, because it got a lot of attention and many awards internationally.
What are some of the awards that you guys won?
Well, let's see. So the Best of ITS award right here for Georgia ITS. We got the American Safety Award also. There's some benefits of the corridor ultimately that we can talk about a little later, but also the Smart City Award in Barcelona 2 times. oh my goodness, I'm missing one, but there's at least 5 or 6. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was recognized internationally. And to be frank, many cities in this nation and internationally would call and say, what is this project? What did y'all do? And we would like to do that too. Can you put us in contact with some of these companies?
And one of the things you talked about earlier was outcomes-based contracting. And I know not everybody understands what outcomes-based contracting is. Do you want to explain a little bit, how you guys came up with an outcomes-based contract and made it successful?
Well, so it started with the request for information. Writing the appropriate ingredients of what you want this technology to be able to do. And that, it must help safety for all mobility users. And so, you can define that in a request for information to make sure that that's what they are responding to. Instead of your typical specification, bid document, and all that, so that, you define the outcomes-based performance things, you're convinced by these vendors or technology companies that they can do that, you try to assure it, and then you procure their product.
And this way you're actually getting innovative ideas that people are thinking outside the box versus people just responding to a pure, technical specification that you've got to go and, do it A, B, C, D. You're getting innovative proposals then from multiple different vendors, and it allows you to then go pick those different vendors.
That's exactly right. And so it was very effective. And then that would be the advice that I'd want to give to other agencies that are trying to do something like this, instead of just simply design, bid, build, spec.
Okay, so we've talked about the North Avenue project. What I thought we would do is let's go show everyone a bit of the North Avenue project by showing them one of the videos that you guys shot there, and then we can talk about a bunch of things after that.
Sure.
Moving and connecting and flowing to make Atlanta drivable, walkable, livable, memorable, invincible. Making roadways smart, and at the heart, the people.
North Avenue was chosen as the Living Lab corridor, smart city technology deployments that would benefit mobility overall for pedestrians, vehicles, transit, and bicyclists. The goal of the project was to improve safety and also to provide connectivity to vehicles and infrastructure and to all types of mobility. The term we're using is everything connected to everything for safety benefit.
Seamless interface is an about face from the norm. Apps making it a snap to navigate and communicate and innovate.
We also have technology in the cabinets that you can download an app on your phone. That technology will recognize you, and you can label yourself as a driver, as a cyclist, or as a pedestrian. And so if you're in your car and you've got that app on, it'll speak to you, so you don't have to look at it. And it'll tell you that there's a cyclist up ahead or a pedestrian.
There's safety both for the driver and for the other mobility users. We're all connected. The old systems were simply time of day. They were set patterns. In Atlanta, it's not predictable. Traffic is different. Every single day there's a special event, there's a movie being made, there's different types of mobility and traffic demands. We're simply accommodating and pushing more vehicles and other mobility users through these intersections than before. What we did here is we used high definition color video detection systems at every intersection, which we're able to put an app behind it, so a video analytics app, and the analytics feed into a adaptive traffic signal system meant for the urban environment. What makes this adaptive system special is it combines artificial intelligence with traffic theory. So all of the traffic signals are like neighbors. Each neighbor is telling the other, here's what's coming your way and here's what I have just received. So they can constantly repeat algorithms to provide better mobility all the way around.
People biking, commuting, shopping, walking their dogs, running, living.
Besides having an adaptive system for vehicles, we also have adaptive system for bicyclists and pedestrians. So we're using thermal imaging and video detection supplement cameras at some of these locations. So a pedestrian or a bicyclist is detected automatically. You don't have to push a ped button at these intersections.
Don't we all want our travel to be a little easier, safer, greener, better?
All of the data is going back to City Hall right now into our Digital Mobility Center. We're able to view through many different dashboards. Some of the technologies are being piloted and tested, and we're doing that right there in the Digital Mobility Center. We do have a partnership with Georgia Tech, in which Georgia Tech is also evaluating the corridor for safety, emissions, and simply the benefit using measures of effectiveness and performance measures throughout the corridor from end to end.
Connecting to our jobs, our loved ones, our classes, our friends, our homes, our lives with ease.
The North Avenue corridor was picked for a number of reasons. If you look at the corridor, it connects Georgia Tech, the headquarters for Coca-Cola, Ponce City Market, which is right on the Atlanta Beltline, some really great locations and destinations.
So it's a perfect east-west corridor of a mix of mobility that made this the ideal candidate.
Getting there safely, effortlessly, enjoyably.
Wow. So, it's a pretty amazing video that you guys have put together there. And to be honest, it feels like you guys deployed all the coolest ITS technology. This is really a traffic engineer's dream in terms of technology getting deployed. Mm-hmm. What were some of can you talk about some of the cool technologies that we just saw in that video right now?
Yeah, certainly. So, there are there are high definition video detection systems all along the corridor, and then they have data analytics behind them that just simply do so many things for a signal system that that weren't options years ago. We have thermal imaging detection cameras that will pick up, like the Georgia Tech students right there on the ramp at the Hawk signal, because to be frank, sometimes they don't push the button. So
we've got a picture of that, and we've seen this a lot of times, as you actually see, the people just basically walk and they don't push the button. And this is the case. And we also saw a whole bunch of those pedestrian crosswalks as well. How do you go about selecting a pedestrian crosswalk? In other words, where to put one of those?
Well, so with the closed circuit television cameras that we had throughout the corridor, which was part of the project, we're able to examine where pedestrians were crossing, jaywalking style crossing all along the corridor. There are condominiums, there's a lot of places to go to all along this corridor, and big businesses. So, and then the Beltline is there too, Ponce City Market. So we were able to see where were these concentrated areas of crossing, what was the appropriate spacing between these. We did put the same thermal imaging cameras there as well to detect, and in most cases we try to use solar panel for these rectangular rapid flashing beacon locations. So that's how we did it, and they're working. Now I will say, sometimes when they're in the median, they'll be hit by a car or something like that, so that's unfortunate. We've been able to adjust the location of these sometimes so that they'll last longer.
Okay, so in other words, there's all this different technology with pedestrians, and what you're saying is, don't just go and look at, hey, here's one intersection, here's the next intersection, let's put a mid-block crossing in the middle.
Right.
Actually, use some knowledge, see where people are actually crossing, and that's where you put it.
And it's got to be safe. North Avenue is a roller coaster road. You got to make sure you have sight distance. You're following manual uniform traffic control devices, guidance, and things like that. Also in the corridor, we have connected vehicle deployment. The city pursued the 2020 SPAT challenge, the AASHTO SPAT challenge, and so did put DSRC in connected vehicle, which was tested along the corridor. There's also emergency vehicle preemption, transit priority, the Travel Safely app, and then all this hardwares are in these cabinets. So we have cyber locks on all these cabinets as well to protect them, and only certain people can get in and out of these cabinets along the corridor. It's an investment that's made by the city that they desire to protect. So when you put all that together,
let me go ahead and mention some good old-fashioned civil engineering. The road was resurfaced. It was previously a 6-lane road, okay? Not necessarily exclusive turn lanes either on the 6-lane road. So it was restriped, resurfaced, and put back as a 5-lane road with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. So, at the end of the day, all this stuff together, created a very smooth, progressive, and safer corridor for all the different mobility users. And we were not able to squeeze a bike lane on the road because of the simple width and topography, but there are adjacent and parallel bicycle routes. There's one on Ponce de Leon, of course there's the Beltline and all these other corridors. So it worked, and it made sense not to pursue that.
And you said there was a tight deadline on this project.
Yes.
How long did it, I mean, that's a huge amount of technology that you guys have put down. How long did it take from procurement to deployment of this technology? I mean, how many months did you actually have to actually deploy this?
So I'll say about March, April 2017, I was starting to get nervous. All right, it was time to procure, it was time to get things done. So between March and let's say September, that's like 6 months, And so, when you buy a lot of materials, you expect them to be delivered, and you want to get some guarantees, and that's not always a success. So that also has some input on what we could actually do. But the vendors, manufacturers, companies that could deliver is what got deployed.
So all of this technology was deployed in 6 months,
Yeah.
and was opened with a ribbon cutting.
And resurfaced and restriped, retimed, everything. It was tight, yeah. Never done a project that quick in my whole life. So,
And what's the favorite project you've completed?
North Avenue Smart Corridor.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, I mean, I know we were part of that project at that time, and it was incredibly stressful. And I mean, you guys had so many things thrown at you because
Right.
what happened the weekend before you were about to open?
Well, the hurricane that was coming across the coast slammed Atlanta, took a lot of the the signal poles and twisted them around, pulled wires. It made a mess. It was the same week as the ribbon cutting. So so that required a significant cleanup by Department of Public Works before they got in there, came through. It was sort of a, this is going to be a highlight key project, and everything better look good and be clean. So everyone, worked well together. Something I need to say about, all of these vendors, technology companies, manufacturers are competitors amongst each other, and I have never seen them work together in this manner, this well before. So everyone, it was kind of required, and it was necessary to accomplish that in a 6-month time frame. But they worked together. It was extremely professional, even helped each other out, gave guidance so that everyone's system worked and was successfully operational to do the big show in the ribbon cutting. So it's a huge success story, and it's great to work with those kind of companies and people that are truly right here in Atlanta.
And it also shows you doing an outcomes-based contract gets multiple different vendors involved, and they actually all work together because they're all trying to achieve the same outcome.
Right. And so, and everyone wanted, to achieve the goals and the outcome. And hopefully their product was worthy to be deployed elsewhere in the city. The technology and that is still operational on North Avenue today was deployed in other parts of the city. They were chosen to be worthy. Some were not, and it's simply the ones that were not were taken out and not deployed elsewhere. And at least
Yeah, now you've got great knowledge of what worked and what didn't work, and what you should actually put in other places within the city. So I got a question for you. What are some of the big outcomes of the North Avenue project, that you guys actually saw as a critical outcome?
Yeah, so, there are slower speeds on North We have safer crosswalks
for pedestrians and even bikes. And the biggest one though is like a 25% reduction in crashes. So that's a big deal.
Wow.
That's a big deal. Now, I can't say that some particular technology helped that crash reduction, but all of it put together did.
And I think that's the magic of the project that you guys did, was it's actually all this technology working together that makes such a safer type of system.
Yeah, that's right. So you put all these elements together. It's a completely wireless system, and when you see results like that and you pay attention to it, it's things that you can brag about that this investment was worthy.
So what are some of the other projects that you've now done based on North Avenue, utilizing the same kind of technology?
Yeah, right. So, there's been a lot of them, a lot. One I'll describe now is like special event traffic management. I was fortunate enough to work on what was called a playbook with a consultant team in the downtown CID and their consultants. And then we were able to identify a lot of this technology to be deployed all around downtown to manage Falcons games, the Hawks games, these big events. And when you have big events like this, it changes everything. Even when there's movie making downtown. So everything is an event and changes traffic patterns. Some other really good ones are
just before you go on to that, what are some of because the events, everybody talks about event management, and we had the Super Bowl, and we had multiple big events that happened. How did what are some of the outcomes that you guys saw, from ingress and egress of these facilities?
Oh yeah, so I'll use this example. The Football League will rate and score all these stadiums across the nation on their ingress and egress. And years ago, Atlanta scored pretty lowly, real low. So we were able to, cut those in half completely. One big thing there was to make the signals work the appropriate way, have communication with them, be able to control them from the office, and have eyes all over with CCTV cameras and video detection. So we could simply get people to their parking decks where they needed to be faster. The old style was police officers taking over the intersection, putting them in flash and directing traffic. We wanted those police officers out of the road, being more conscious about pedestrian safety, having that presence, but not controlling the vehicle or the traffic. So ingress and egress were cut in half. So it was a huge success story. Yeah, and then Atlanta's ranking is way higher now. And so Atlanta hosted a college football championship, Super Bowl. Was supposed to do the NCAA this year. Of course, that got canceled, unfortunately. But there are other big events that the city desires to host in the future. Maybe the World Cup. We'll have to see.
Now, I've seen some really cool things, and spoken to you about how you guys actually achieve that, and using the cameras to actually go and see, when are the pedestrians coming, and actually changing the timing plan in the traffic controller to go to like a scramble.
Right.
Talk us through a little bit of that. How you actually do that.
Yeah, it's because it's such a significant amount of people. We were able to do things remotely through the cameras. I wouldn't say there's a bunch of automatic technology capabilities on that. We had a system, a defined system. That's the playbook I mentioned. So, the playbook had a kind of a defined, you have this many pedestrians here coming up this corridor from Centennial Olympic Park. We're going to make sure that their safety is key. And you have full control of the signals, and then get all these pedestrians across the road in a timely manner. Now, at some point, you got to get the cars out of the way too. So you have to kind of put a halt on that. That's when the police presence helps stop the pedestrians at that point, let the cars go, and then let's get back to a ped scramble when it's time.
But that requires a whole bunch of coordination with multiple different agencies, right?
Yeah, like Georgia DOT, City of Atlanta. That's the primary. Of course, Atlanta Police Department, the security, the World Congress Center, Phillips Arena. Yeah, you'd have a room full of people that all cared that this event would be successful, and that also the people get there safely and get out safely.
That's brilliant. I love seeing kind of people utilizing the technology and actually using remote communications and those kinds of things to actually actively make change, and that's exactly what you guys did on those projects.
Yeah, huge success story. You know, some other ideal projects that are in the works and or coming, the Cambellton Rd, we were calling that a smart transit corridor project. So it will have similar deployments like North Avenue, actually, with the focus more on transit. It's one of the heavier used transit corridors in the whole city. So that's underway right now. And also there's a future project of a complete streets to occur at Cambellton Rd on the southwest side of the city. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive is being deployed right now with some similar technologies. Working with the fire department, you know, putting emergency vehicle preemption on that corridor has been a major priority. And so that's being deployed right now. And there are so many more. Like the year for construction is next year for the program at the city. So there'll be significant good projects. We're slowly deploying technology and the ones that make sense. You know, and at the end of the day, I can't wait to step back and use some technology to say what is good. Like what happened good here? You know, if we can look at that, but some before and after, because I think it's exciting. So it's just been a great experience working on this.
So, for instance, Cambellton Rd, what is your, so are you trying to prioritize buses along that corridor? Is that kind of the program for that project?
That's the focus for Cambellton Rd, yes. Now, of course, it's going to get emergency vehicle preemption also as part of that, but yeah, it ultimately could be a bus rapid transit corridor in the future, maybe light rail transit. You know, it's to be determined through the More MARTA program. But in the meanwhile, we're putting in transit priority now. And so, yeah, it's to simply make the buses perform better, you know, have be able to service their ridership, get them where they need to be.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And the MLK project is also working on emergency vehicle preemption. Does that mean North Avenue also had emergency vehicle preemption as well?
Yes, it does. It does. And you know, when you look at an emergency vehicle preemption project, you need to look at where are these fire departments at, you know, located, and how would they get there, and the corridors that lead them to there. So, you know, the fire department nearest to North Avenue's Midtown will come down Juniper and then use North Avenue or use Boulevard. You know, Grady Hospital's down there too, so it's a significant access. Before the preemption was deployed, I mean, those roads were clogged with cars, and the fire department simply had a very difficult time responding to emergencies. And so they love it. They love to be able to get to where they're trying to get in less time. And the corridors turn green way in advance of their arrival, clear the cars out of their way so that they can get there, you know, in much less time and save lives.
And okay, so I mean, is that a high, in other words, from the administration side and you know, and from the public's perspective, is that seen as a big priority, you know, within the Renew Atlanta T-SPLOST bond program?
It is. It absolutely is. Like for every corridor that makes sense to deploy, and then we have the capabilities within these signal cabinets. Yes, yeah, it's a priority for the administration, for the Atlanta DOT and the fire department.
All right, and now you've queued also a video that we're going to go ahead and show at how the you know, the Atlanta Fire Department is utilizing this. So we'll go ahead and show a little bit of a video of Chief Johnson talking about this.
Yeah, let's see that.
Simply time. If you have a cardiac arrest, time. If you have a working fire, time. So everyone knows Atlanta traffic is super busy. So the fact that we can allow that traffic to move ahead, that gives us that open spot, we can get to the citizens a lot faster. It's tracking us via GPS and a couple of other systems. And what it does is as it tracks us and as we turn blinkers to turn left or to turn right, it will allow those signals to turn green, which moves the traffic before we get there. And then once we get to that particular intersection, we can move freely without stopping.
I always love hearing Chief Dwayne Johnson speak because he puts things in words that we in the traffic department don't generally talk like that. And when you hear him talking about time and how important that is, and he was one of those guys that said, when my guys drive out of Juniper and I'm just blocked, and every single second counts. Time is so important.
Yep.
You don't realize, and especially when you go spend some time with the fire department, you see what they go through. It's such a critical thing, and I think that's a great thing that City of Atlanta is actually embracing, because that's one of the cities that have never ever used emergency vehicle preemption.
That's right.
There are a lot of other cities around there that used optical preemption and things like that, but City of Atlanta's never used it, and it's some of the worst traffic in the world. How did you pick for the North Avenue? How did you pick kind of what intersections to do, based on the fire department and based on transit and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so when you're picking these, you coordinate with the fire department and their chiefs to make sure that that's the route that they go to. So Atlanta has a lot of fire departments, and these fire departments have a lot of coverage areas. So they'll help you define those routes and where they need emergency vehicle preemption, and then and you catch all the ones that are important to them, and that's what we did. With Juniper Boulevard and North Avenue. So for transit, it's making sure that we address the appropriate high priority corridors with MARTA, the ones that make more sense to, more ridership, things like that. So, the constant coordination with these other agencies, there's a lot of them, to make sure that everything makes sense and everybody's on the same page.
And one of the things we talked about, or you talked about, was the ability of actually getting citizens from certain areas to the actual hospitals.
Yeah.
And generally it's been seen that North Atlanta's got more hospitals and more availability, and South Atlanta doesn't. Mm-hmm. And utilizing these kinds of systems actually gets citizens from the south side to the hospitals quicker.
Yeah, that's correct. So now there are multiple deployments now on the south side of Atlanta. Southwest, to respond faster, and ultimately the preemption will be with ambulances as well, so that the ambulances will too be able to get to the hospitals. Right now, that's just the fire department. So there's other steps to be taken to get them in those vehicles too, to get people to the hospitals faster.
What are the sort of steps that you've got to take to get, because it's, there's so many different agencies involved with this, where it's the fire department, the city, the DOT, the ambulance. How do you actually interact with those people? How do you educate them on kind of this technology?
Well, sometimes it's a hard sell because it's some of them simply don't know that it exists. So we reach out to the transportation agencies with these big hospitals to make sure we're talking to the right people, and then we'll communicate with their fleet maintenance operation as well to make sure that they can comprehend how these must be installed. And they need to be legitimate emergency responding operators too. They're not just, these aren't meant for everybody. Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure they're legit, and that at the end of the day, the city is comfortable with who has these in their vehicles and are using the system this way. And through the glance system, we can see who's preempting these, what vehicle it is, and what they're doing. And it's a good way to monitor that it's not being abused, for any ridiculous reason. And so we do that.
And what about the police department? Have there ever been any discussions with the police department?
No, there has not. I mean, every now and then someone will joke around, like to have one in my car, but that's not the case for the police department at this time. We'll see if that discussion comes up at a later date.
Yeah, I suppose as you get more and more of these deployed out in the field, you're going to have more and more people wanting to utilize it to get some priority at the traffic signals.
Right.
One of the things I did want to do is just give a shout out to everybody out in the audience. Please, if you've got any questions, type them out. Jessica can chime in. Jessica, just want to check if you've got any questions. Okay, if anyone ask questions away, you guys have got an expert over here who has deployed this kind of technology, knows what he's doing. So please ask as many questions as you can. So one of the questions I want to ask you, I mean, you've worked with multiple different agencies and so on. Mm-hmm. What makes Renew Atlanta so special?
Well, you know, it's one of the largest infrastructure improvements in Atlanta's history. So, you know, being able to work with this many projects citywide, that's what makes it special. And so, you know, and it's just been, you know, there's just so many things that still need to be done, infrastructure-wise. So, you know, that's key, and it's a great group of men and women that are, I mean, they're truly dedicated, and they'll do whatever it takes, you know, to accomplish these and deliver these projects. We must deliver the projects at the end of the day. That's what the client wants. That's what the city wants to occur. Now, just so you'll know, there's been some changes, organizational changes at the city. So, you know, there's an Atlanta Department of Transportation led by Josh Rowan, who's the commissioner. And so since this organizational change, Renew Atlanta is now within a division called Project Capital Delivery. And then elements of the Atlanta's Department of Public Works is also within this Atlanta DOT. So it's all under the an umbrella of a DOT organization now, which is a good thing for the city. And so you know, Renew Atlanta still operates underneath that, and we'll continue to do so. There's another like year and a half left on the consultant team contract for the city, and there's actually so many more things that are coming. I mean, for consultants that may be watching this, there's RFP on the street right now for on-call transportation engineering services. So it's good for that community. Many construction projects about to come out. You know, we want good competitive bids. We hope the contracting community will respond to these. And they are an array of things. You know, there are a lot of intelligent transportation system, signal stuff, traffic stuff, but there's resurfacing complete streets, bicycles, I mean, you name it, good, sweet projects. And it's a lot of exclusive bicycle lane projects too. Also, interestingly enough, the commissioner, Mr. Rowan, is authorizing another request for information to come out to do sort of what he's calling North Avenue Smart Corridor 2020. So he wants to take it a step further than 3 years ago, with a lot of focus on the Vision Zero and safety. So another round is coming, you know, and it'll be similar, outcomes-based performance for sure, and you know, in a project that that the city would like to achieve this year. So
you're going to be working really hard again.
That's right.
With probably a ribbon cutting again.
I just need somebody to tell me the date, and and then we will accomplish that. So yeah, so that's in the works. Very exciting. You know, that will come out from the city's procurement. You know, so you know, the fact is, even though you know we are in this COVID telework environment, the city is still functioning in business. Everything is still underway. Projects are still being designed, constructed, deployed, and so you know, we hadn't really missed a lick.
So how does the public see, you know, the performance of Renew Atlanta, and kind of, you know, obviously because it's bond money and it's T-SPLOST money going towards that. Mm-hmm. I mean, do they see, I mean, because I see there's been a huge amount of activity since the Renew Atlanta program started. What has been the public perception?
Yeah, so there's some differences there. You know, for the most part, I'm going to say that Atlanta has not been used to construction in a long time. And so sometimes it's hard for them to envision what this project will look like and feel like at the end of it, because you go to public meetings, see conceptual layouts and plans, and you know, they just want it done and finished. So you know, to understand that it can take 4 to 5 years to deliver a big project, right-of-way acquisition, utility. I mean, all these things, they got to be designed. And so, and then construction, procurement, and all these things have to take place. So some projects are, the most significant larger projects will be delivered between now and next summer. And so, you know, the public will get to feel these. You know, they want these projects done. So they're impatient, to be frank. So, you know, one thing I talk about with Commissioner Rowan is that, you know, the city's going to be under construction, a lot of pieces of the city at one time, you know, and that's going to be something you have to deal with. Work zone, some delays in traffic. I know traffic is much better now, just because there's less people on the streets and less people going to work. And we've taken advantage of that. We've extended construction times. We're working on weekends, working through the peak hours, you know, so we can kind of get more accomplished. So now the projects that are complete, there are, you know, many safety projects, you know, a lot of hawk signals, a lot of signal improvements. The citizens love it, you know, and you'll get some feedback. You know, it's you don't get as many compliments as you do criticism in this line of work. It's just reality. But, you know, you can hang on and appreciate the ones that are recognizing and feeling the change and improvement in the City of Atlanta's infrastructure.
And I suppose you guys have seen a huge amount of recognition for the work that you've done, especially North Avenue, where you've won multiple international awards, you know, for that project. So, you know, I think that's actually a huge kudos to you guys for deploying all this technology, which has been absolutely amazing. You know, when you do the North Avenue projects, like you've done, what are some of the immediate impacts that you see from, you know, the connected vehicle technology that you guys have been deploying?
Well, you know, the connected vehicle technology is it's a big deal. So, you know, for all these different mobility users to be connected to the infrastructure, you know, for everyone's own safety benefit is, you know, it's evolving. And for them to see and feel and be warned about, you know, potential intersection of each other or, you know, injuring each other, you know, it's going to make a big difference going forward. Like, there's so much testing going on right now, right? And so, and across the nation, across the world. So, you know, and then, you know, the auto manufacturers are coming through on the type of technology they are going to use, whether it's going to be DSRC, CV2X, whatever. So, you know, I think it's some amazing times for safety, and which goes right in hand with Atlanta's Vision Zero strategy and plan at the end of the day. So, I mean, I think it's important, you know, and for everything to be connected to everything.
Yeah. And you talked about some of the studies and things like that, and you know, there's been some great study results coming out of Florida where they've been actually testing, you know, how humans react to audible alerts in vehicles in school zones and cyclists ahead. And they basically come out and said, when you provide an audible alert that there's a cyclist ahead or you speeding in a school zone, people slow down their cars and their eyes track the road better. So they're seeing a drastic improvement in reduction in speed and awareness. Now the challenge is always, how do you deploy this wide scale, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
And there's been other places like the Netherlands that have actually come out and they've shown, all right, well, you know, if we use an incentive where actually they pay the public to download the free apps, they pay them. You know, for a nation of 17 million people, they have 2.5 million downloads of these apps. So that's a way of actually getting the public to actually utilize, you know, free smartphone applications that basically, as you said, connect everything to everything. Because that's a way of, it's not going to achieve Vision Zero, but it's going to help get us there.
Right. Yeah, it is. You know, and it's difficult to get users of the app or the equipment in cars, right? And, you know, will everybody get a new car that has it or not? You know, just, you know, the advantages of having the ability to have it on your phone or in your car, you know, whichever you choose. So, yeah, it's interesting times to see the continued benefit, and you know, when Atlanta moves further with their, you know, the upcoming RFI,
It's going to be extremely focused on safety, particularly bicycle, pedestrian, scooter safety. Now, I'm not leaving cars out on that, but I'm just saying, more significance there. But the ability for everything to be connected to everything, maybe citywide speed limit drop, and an ordinance down to 25. So, to get cars to go slower, have some technology to monitor that, warn potential collisions, will be things that will be great to test on North Avenue. And it continuous living lab reputation. And
you guys have got the perfect test grounds for testing all of this, having North Avenue and MLK and all these areas that you've deployed this technology to test everything, which is great.
That's right.
Jessica, I just want to check, are there any questions that you've got down there for us?
Yeah, I have here, and it's asking, with a wide network of interconnected devices taking care of communicating with the traffic management center, how are these vehicle and infrastructure communications being secured? Is there something in the traffic center taking care of authenticating and securing the communications?
Great question. So it's on security. You're connecting all these different things up. How do you protect your security? And I know you touched on that for the physical security,
right?
In terms of the cyber locks. Was there anything else that you guys have done in this project?
So there are a lot of things underway, working in conjunction with Georgia DOT and their IT on security to make sure that the systems are compromised. So it's work that's continuous, to be sure. So there are things, I wouldn't say it's like bona fide secure. Everyone's a little worried, and it's constantly being looked at. So there's an effort right now with Georgia DOT to have better solutions for that. I'll tell you, at the very beginning of this whole project was the FBI came to visit the city and I to say, hey, by the way, if you're going to do all this smart stuff, you need to be conscious about cybersecurity and all that stuff. So there's a lot of warnings there from the very beginning, and in some cases you need to go hire a consultant, a cybersecure consultant, contractors. They're out there, and help them. They hire them to help you secure your systems so that you're not violated. Because Atlanta's been hacked before. The city computer system, not a signal system. So, and many other cities across the nation were too. So it can happen.
And there's also some other things like NEMA TS8 cybersecurity, the physical and cybersecurity. Obviously, you've done the physical security of cyber locks,
right?
And also that's also pushing the vendors to use that kind of security.
Right.
So yeah, NEMA TS8, look it up. Great security standard that NEMA's created. Jessica, any other questions you got there?
Okay, so we have someone asking you, Keary talked about the fire department having preemption. Is there plans for the police department to also have that, or how do you guys plan on expanding preemption throughout the city?
Okay. There are no plans now for the police department to have it. So not to say that it won't ever happen. So other discussions to take place. At the end of the day, the Bond T-SPLOST program is funding the infrastructure, in the roadway. So these other departments need funding to put it in their vehicles, for instance. So Atlanta Police Force is a sizable force, so even for MARTA, transit, fire department, they need to procure their own on-board units. So the second half of that question was, there are key corridors that have been identified with the fire chief and their staff of what's next. So we have a huge map, and it's prioritized with the fire department for key corridors that they desire to be next. So there are phased deployments that are continuing to come.
Perfect. Well, we've only got about 30 seconds left, so I wanted to thank you, Keary, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
It's really awesome learning about the projects that you guys have got going on in the City of Atlanta and the Renew Atlanta T-Splosh Bond program. So thanks so much for joining us
You're
today. It was awesome having you here. Thank you.
It's glad to be here. It's a great program to be on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keary.
On Zoom and then 10 additional on YouTube.